Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a bird screaming your trauma at you.
And this week, we dive back into the arena with the 2013 YA blockbuster, Catching Fire. Before we not so subtly give our president terrible political advice, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, or following us on Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla, we're back in the games.
That we are?
How are you feeling about them?
I mean, I don't. That's a wild question. Poorly for the children, right? But for my own entertainment value, pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is production wise, I think construction wise, a much stronger entry. Definitely some gripes with it. We'll get into, but I liked it. I think on the whole, my feelings are not so high on the arena stuff, but pretty high on basically everything else.
I mean, that kind of dovetails with how you felt about the last movie too, right? Because we liked all the pre-arena psychological stuff, and then you get in the arena and it's like, sure, okay. I think I feel the same, especially considering I think the clock stuff is cooler in the books. I was a little bit disappointed by the clock stuff in the movie.
Yeah, it's a little straightforward. It's just kind of like, and then a thing happens, and then a thing happens, and we'll talk about it at the end when we talk about the actual arena stuff. But yeah, I do feel like it's a little bit more static in a way that is not as exciting. But yeah, we'll get into it. I believe it's my turn to do the plot summary.
Take us away.
So yeah, we start, it's like winter in District 12. We get a shot of like a frozen lake. Katniss is sitting there, bow drawn, and Gale comes to see her. And he's like, hey, Katniss, we have like an emotional connection. Do you remember that? And she's like, I'm trying to deal with it, but also I have post-traumatic stress disorder, like really bad. Let me try to shoot this turkey. Oh no, I believe I've shot a boy and I have a panic attack. I noted in my notes that like this whole opening sequence is like both very, I think it's fun. I think like seeing winter in any setting is like a cool opportunity for fun, camera shots. But it is very much like, okay, this is the movie Catching Fire. Katniss is already emotionally very cold. She's like frozen out her love interests and her family. And she's got to like find that fighting spirit to come back to get through that trauma. It's extremely on the nose. It is not doing subtle storytelling, which I'm pretty happy by. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about this first sequence with Gale and Katniss?
I don't like Gale. I'm bored of Gale. Gale does nothing for me. I think there's three elements to this franchise, and it's like, the political revolutionary stuff, Katniss's like kind of character arc, and the very real, very intimate effects of being in a torture contest. And then there's the love triangle. Holy dicks, do I hate the love triangle. It is so pointless. None of these people deserve PETA. I tried to resist saying that the entire time because I was like, I know I'm just upset that Chris Hemsworth looks so old, and so I respect him to be... Sorry, Liam Hemsworth. He looks so old, and so I respect him to be more responsible, even though he's portraying an 18-year-old boy. But then PETA just keeps doing stuff, and I'm like, no, actually, none of you people deserve him.
Yeah, PETA's role is very weird in this, now that I'm thinking about it, right? He has, like, maybe the best strategy move in the entire series that we'll talk about. If you know about the Hunger Games, you know what I'm talking about. But, like, the rest of it, he kind of exists to be a little pathetic, like, meow meow, I think. Like, he is literally wet and has to be pulled from the water at one point to be rescued. He is basically only getting pity kisses from Katniss throughout. he is in like kind of, and then also, we'll talk about it, but he goes out of his way to try to, save Katniss, in multiple ways. He is trying really hard, but like he's also basically only a reactionary character, and what I mean by that is like he's only taking actions to serve Katniss because he is like ultimately still in love with her, and it's like it's not a very interesting love triangle if only one person is in love. Katniss, enjoys making out with Gale, but I wouldn't say that she's in love with him. Katniss has a lot of fondness for Peeta, but like I don't think she's like in love with either of them, and both of them are like deeply into her, and maybe that's the appeal of a love triangle. Romance stuff is always so hit or miss for me, except for like rom-coms specifically, which nearly always work. I don't know why that is. But like, yeah, I think it's a very strange character. I think Peeta is very weirdly constructed, but like weirdly parentheses positive. Like he's trying so hard.
He's trying so hard. Yeah, we'll get into this is Gale time. We'll get into Peeta a little bit later. But like, if Peeta's a weird reactionary character, I think Gale's worse. Like, such a weird reactionary character. All his entire function. You made a note in your notes where you're like, dude just saw his girlfriend have a panic attack, and then he started scolding her for pretending to be in love with a guy on TV to save her own life. And it's like,
yes,
yeah, there's no way to please this guy. And there's no, like, other than that kind of, like, YA dialogue that's supposed to telegraph that these two people are close, you don't actually get a sense of how these two people are close. Gale is never, we don't see him maybe, like, going out of his way to feed Katniss's family. We don't see him interacting with Prim ever. We don't see him interacting with her mom. We don't see him doing her any, like, favors. Meanwhile, in The Hunger Games, parentheses 2012, how many times did we see that flashback of Peeta throwing her the loaf of bread, right? Mm-hmm. So Gale is just kind of, like, there for us to be told that he is part of this love triangle, but all he is just kind of an annoying scold.
Yeah, and, this culminates in him kissing Katniss when they're having like an argument, because Katniss is about to go on this tour of the capital with Peeta and this is a thing that all the victors do, is be like, hey, sorry about killing all your children, thanks for your service to the capital, blah blah blah. But he kisses her and he's like, I had to do that just once. It's like, bro, get a life.
Not the move.
No, he sucks. He's very annoying. Anyway, Katniss goes to wake up Haymitch. Haymitch has resumed being an alcoholic, which is very funny. He's like, all right, I won this shit. I'm going back to drinking, which is very funny. So Katniss goes and like wakes him up by pouring water on his head. He's like, you are extremely unlikable, which is a very good thing. Woody Harrelson, despite the fact that I think he is like, he could be doing a lot of other stuff, I think he truly is giving, a pretty good performance in this movie. Like, he is a believable, like, guy who doesn't want to be here, but also does actually care about these kids quite a lot. And like his like absolute, not hatred, right? It's like when you have a sibling, or it's like when your teen daughter is like 13 or 14 years old and is just like a menace to you as a parent, and you're like, I love you, but you suck so much. Like, I think that's what Haymitch is doing, and Woody Harrelson does a great job of that. But Katniss wakes him up. Peeta comes over and he's like, hello, Katniss, would you like a loaf of bread? In the most robotic, rehearsed way. And Woody Harrelson's immediately like, y'all gotta fucking talk to each other. This is weird,
Yeah. Oh god, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the fact that I would fuck up a warm loaf of bread right now. Mm-hmm. It just, because I remember him just like biting into it, and I was like, damn, that looks soft and crunchy, the best type of bread. No, I love what Woody Harrelson is doing in this scene, because, the thing is that they're about to, this is actually maybe one of my favorite sequences in the movie, because, like, he's there, Effie arrives, which I didn't realize that was fucking Elizabeth Banks until today.
Is she really Elizabeth disappears. Banks a famous person?
Very. You've seen at least one rom-com with her.
She was in Seabiscuit. She was in the Lego Movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about her, unfortunately. She was a great Effie. She was cool.
She's great Effie. Very cool. But she comes, and the whole thing is that they're about to do this live broadcast from District 12 for Caesar Flickman, as portrayed by a very self-tanned Stanley Tucci. And it's such a great sequence because you have Woody Harrelson doing that whole bit with, making fun of the kids for not talking to each other. Effie's just there, being Effie with her little clowns, and she's so excited to see these kids. And then they walk out, and you realize that this, live broadcast they're hyping up is just these, 2 fucking cameras that they flew in and set up, and they have to do this really awkward pretending to be in love gambit between their 2 houses that are directly across from each other. I liked it a lot. It was so awkward.
Yeah, and they start making out because one of them slips on the snow, and it's very, it feels like a thing you do if you are trying to pretend to be in love, right? It's not a thing that if you are actually, I don't know, right? Some people, you and I have recently talking about shame, and how neither of us are perhaps the kind of person who would make out with somebody in public because we were raised different, parentheses, wrong, question mark, but it doesn't feel like a real thing. It absolutely feels like them still playing the game, and we'll talk about playing the game later on. But yeah, I think I really like that sequence. It feels like they're already starting to get warmed up for this performance. Unfortunately, it does end with PETA being like, wow, I would have almost sworn that kiss was real, and I was like, bro. He starts off bad. He starts off on kind of a low note. He builds from here, but this is his lowest point in the movie, where he's like, I'm still in love with you, Kat. And I guess the audience has to be reminded that he's still in love with Katniss, which is like, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, but at the same time,
boo. Yeah, we can boo this man. I'm not sorry that you got sent to Five Nights at Freddy's for this. That's what happens at the end of the Hunger Games. They don't tell you that. But PETA has to go work at Five Nights at Freddy's.
I wish we hadn't already watched Willy's Wonderland, because that would have been a great double feature.
This and Willy's Wonderland? Or no,
Five Nights
Willy's
Wonderland and Five Nights, yeah.
Yeah, no, obviously. I don't know. Nothing can beat Willy's Wonderland as a thing. It would blow that movie out of the water. Exactly.
And then we could have talked about why Willy's Wonderland is the definitive Five Nights at Freddy movie.
Right, it still is. One important thing that happens is Katniss is preparing for this tour, but she comes home and President Snow shows up at her house, and she's like, "Hi, the president," and he's like, "Hi, Katniss. We can cut through the bullshit. Is that okay? Here's the thing. I actually don't want to kill you." And she's like, "Huh, that's weird." And they have like this back and forth where he's basically like, "Listen, I get it. You were just trying to save your life in that arena. That's great. The other people of the districts didn't see it like that. They thought maybe you were, I don't know, resisting my authoritarian regime and you were trying to make a statement. And that doesn't look so good for me as an authoritarian dictator. So you kind of have to make this tour really, really good. You have to pacify the districts super good. Otherwise, I am gonna have to kill you, and that would be a bummer because I like you, and my granddaughter likes your hairstyle." I like this scene, even if it's a little YA bantery. He there's at one point where Katniss is like, must be a pretty weak system if it can only be brought down by a few berries, and it's like, got his ass, but also like, all right, sure. But I like that sequence. I mean, do you have any thoughts about Snow's appearance here?
No, I'm right there with you. I really like the fact that he's just like, all right, hashtag real talk. We're not going to play these games. I'm just going to tell you what's up, and you're going to listen to me. I like his menacing little flower, his menacing little giant snowdrop. Or at least I think that's what they're trying to do, because snowdrops are very, very little, and he's more carrying something tulip-sized. I like that he hands her the flower as a threat. It's good. I think we do get to see... Katniss is so weird in this movie because, again, without her narration, We don't really get to see her internal monologue. In the last movie, she barely talked, so we really didn't get to see anything from her other than tragic facial expressions. And in this movie, we kind of get her being sarcastic and funny, but it feels a little bit jarring because it's like, wait a minute, where did this come from? And if you don't have the context of the books where her internal monologue is like that, it's just a little strange. And this is one of the scenes where we start to see her kind of be a little bit, sassy, because, President Snow is like, hey, I have a little problem, and it started when you took out those berries in the arena, and he describes his problem, and Katniss is like, sounds like a pretty fragile system if it can be brought down by a few berries, and he goes, yes. And you're like, okay, she's a little sassy, but where's that coming from? So that's my one, that is a general critique that is evidenced by this scene.
Again, there's not a whole lot you can do as far as interiority goes. Perhaps we should have, seen more of her being kind of like, she does, she doesn't feel real through a lot of this movie, which is unfortunate. Again, part of that is just because they're expecting you to fill in her personality from having read the books. But I do wish we'd see more of her. That is not just her being heroic all the time. Because a lot of this is just Lawrence doing, action movie shit. And also, being the world's best, martyr. So like, we'll talk about it. But, I mean, actually, we'll talk about it right now because like the tour immediately goes bad. They go to District 11, which is notably the district that Thresh and Rue, the little girl, and, to be clear, the district with the most black people in it, a cotton producing district, which is like pretty stereotypical. Yeah, it's like, okay, we get it. But I go back and forth because like, I don't think, there's not enough black people in this entire series. I think that's just straight up true. I mean, we get Lenny Kravitz, who is great. He is unfortunately beaten to death pretty early on, I guess halfway through the movie, which sucks. But yeah, I wish if in a movie that's about America, right, you should have some more black people in it. All of this is to say, America still doesn't treat black folks very well, and we're seeing that now. There's a lot of authoritarian parallels between this film and, what's happening now, which is obviously because, authoritarians all use the same playbook. But it is like a little bit, I wouldn't say funny, but it's kind of like, to be like, oh, the playbook is the same and it's stupid every single time.
I mean, I would personally love it if Pam Bondi came out in like an Effie Trinket outfit. I think that would make reading the news slightly more bearable.
Yeah, where's the pageantry? The thing about these fucking fascists is that they don't have any juice.
No, they don't. As evidenced by Derek Guy's entire social media feed. Mm-hmm. Derek Guy, being the tailoring guy that constantly dunks on right-wing people because their suits never fit. Mm-hmm. So I do wish we put a little more juice, a little more pizzazz into our authoritarianism.
Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to get to is they at first Peeta and Katniss they go off script immediately and they're like, hey, we're sorry about what happened to especially Rue. Thresh was, we didn't know him super well, but he, didn't kill me, which was cool of him. Also, we're donating a month of our salaries to your families, so hopefully that will help. So immediately already building sympathy, between them and District 11. And then, Katniss gives a very nice speech about Rue and says, how sorry she is that Rue's dead. And one of the people in the crowd does the 3-finger Mockingjay salute. And immediately the crowd all starts doing that. People start, the peacekeepers come in, they drag the guy who did the salute out, and they shoot him in the head. Which, like, again...
I do think we can say this aged really, really poorly. I mean, it didn't even just age poorly. It was just really poor execution to do this, right?
Sure.
They were trying to go for, and I mean, mind you, also in the books, Rue is not black. This was an intentional change the filmmakers made.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. It was a huge thing when she was cast as a black girl. So, how racist people on the internet can be. Yep. And I think, had they also changed maybe Finnick to be black, or had they also changed Or, you know, had there been any other, I'm like struggling to think of any of the characters.
Well, here's the thing. There are 2 other tributes from District 11, and they are
nameless, dead.
Okay. So this obviously freaks Katniss out. She's like, I didn't know that was going to happen. And then now building off your critique, it's like, Katniss is framed as like a semi-unwilling revolutionary figurehead throughout the entire movie, and we'll see what happens in Mockingjay. But like, I do think it is one of the weirder aspects of this film is that like Katniss doesn't really want to be a figurehead, but also she's like kind of leaning into it. And it seems like she's doing it on accident, right? She is stumbling into this role just because of her own virtue. She's just like, oh, I just have to go and protect these people. I have to say the thing that's in my heart, which is like, you know, not really how this works, right? You know, protesting and, you know, planned actions, they're, you know, deliberate, right? It's not just like, you know, good people, you know, feel something and they do something about it. Although that helps. It's usually a very deliberate and strategized action, which is not really what Katniss is doing here. So yeah, I think it's weird. It's probably my least favorite part of Katniss's character in this movie, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I also... You said earlier that this movie does our girl dirty, and I completely agree, because, like, some of the things she does are just silly, and, like, the movie doesn't commit enough to the idea of how she feels about all this, and I can't remember if this is a fault with the books, too, where, like, you know, this movie actually has some interesting, the beginnings of interesting concepts, right? The thing that works best about it is the intimacy with which these main characters of this revolution have to act, right? Like how personal the effects are on these kids. Katniss does not want to be a figurehead. Katniss does not want to be a symbol. But the way she reacts to that, becoming that symbol, is instead of it feeling like denial, right? Which I think you could get to a point where like you have her in clear and aggressive denial of what is happening and pretending like she can still salvage something for her family's safety. Instead, she just kind of comes off dumb. Like, there are moments when we'll get to, you know, talking about the actual games, but there are moments where she's like, why did so-and-so sacrifice themselves for me? What do you mean they did this for me? And it's like, girly pop, I need you to focus. Like, everyone's figured it out but you, and that's not a good look on you. It would be different if she was not willfully ignorant. It would be different if she was, you know, being presented with the arguments and actively being like, no, there's no way that's happening, you know, like in full denial, one-track mind protecting her family. But she just gets done so dirty, and I think this is the point where we start to see that. She just feels like she doesn't feel like she has any agency in her own story. She just feels like things are happening around her. And that could be used effectively, but it's not. Like I said, it's just not committing to any facet of the story, and that's really frustrating.
Right. This is a critique of plot-driven narratives, right? It's like if your character is not propelling the plot, and the plot is moving through them, and it makes them feel weird, it just makes them feel like they're reacting to things. And, you know, maybe that's less in the books. Again, it's been over a decade since I think either of us have read them. But yeah, it definitely feels like, you know, the story of the Hunger Games is just occurring around Katniss, which is frustrating to watch. But, you know...
especially when she's next to Joanna, who we'll get to.
Right, who fucking kicks ass.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, you know, the tour continues, you know, basically, Haymitch is like, hey, you all have to pull this together. You have to start reading off of Ife's pre-written notes. You have to, you know, if you're going to, you know, come out of this alive, you have to play the game. And at some point, you know, he says, like, you don't get off this train. This is your life forever. He basically just, like, tells that straight up to Katniss and Peeta. And it doesn't seem like that had sunk in for Katniss, or even Peeta, really, which is like, you're going to have to pretend to, you know, be in love with / married to this person. And even if they don't love you for real, you kind of have to play that character, which I think is really interesting. Again, wish we got a little bit more of Peeta's perspective to I mean, I don't know. I guess we don't really need it. His perspective is very straightforward, but it is interesting to be like, you have to be fake married to somebody who doesn't love you. Is a really juicy character conceit that rules for me. but yeah, like Haymitch laying that out and being like, hey, this is the stakes of the rest of your life is really interesting, and it does set the stakes for the rest of the narrative. It's like, okay, yeah, you don't ever get to stop playing these games. Which I think is one of the more effective parts of this movie, as you pointed out in your notes, Leyla. You know, it sets the stakes of what's happening to all the competitors like very plainly.
Yeah. Yeah, it does work for that. It's plain and it's intimate and it's real. I think I'm trying to remember as you're talking about it. I'm trying to remember the epilogue of the fourth book or the third book because I remember it did piss me off. I think it's very vague as to how Katniss feels about Peeta. I'm pretty sure they are married. I am pretty sure they have children, which is a bizarre choice.
I don't think they have children. I think she's like, maybe one day we'll have children, but that's the only thing I remember of the epilogue.
Right, but it still feels like she is not willing to say, like, it feels like she loves him but is still too traumatized to say. Like, I don't remember, it was kind of vague, and I remember feeling so dissatisfied because, again, it is a lack of if you are putting a YA love triangle in your YA dystopia, then you either need to give us a really good reason for why it doesn't pay off, or you need to pay it off. And the place where it lands is just completely non-committal. Yeah,
it could have been more like, hey, I'm not really in a good emotional space to pick between you two boys right now on account of the violent revolution I just lived through. I'm just gonna chill. That would have been a little bit.
Well, Gale dies, I think.
I don't think so. I think
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
4 weeks.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, they double down on this. They like give these kind of like really wooden speeches to the rest of the populace, and like people are like yelling at them, like, tell us what you really think. You know, they have to get rushed off of the stage several times, which I think is pretty good. And then Peeta's just like, hey, or Katniss is like, we should get married to help convince, you know, everybody that we're really in love and that this is our whole thing and that we're not revolutionaries. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Cause, you know, we're going to have to, if we are on this train forever, we're going to have to do it eventually. They do it, you know, at the Capitol. Peeta proposes, and everybody's like, oh, yay, Katniss is going to get married. This is so exciting. I'm definitely thinking about the royal wedding, which, you know, I don't remember when the last time the royal wedding was in relation to when this book came out. So who knows if that's what was on Suzanne Collins' mind, but certainly, you know, a pageantry type deal, which is very fun. A couple other interesting things happen at the Capitol. In particular, they're doing this dance. They go to the presidential manor. There's a bunch of people who look like they belong in the Panic at the Disco music video there. There's the scene with the like vomitorium where they're like, hey, you can drink this liquid to puke up all the food you've been eating so you can continue to eat more, which I remember from the books. I remember liking that as a detail from the books, which is like, you know, a place that is so full of gluttony, right, and so full of excess that you can just barf up your food and keep eating is like, again, it's not particularly subtle, but I think it is effective in how it shows the Capitol to be a place of, I certainly don't want to use the word degeneracy, right? But it is like that kind of Roman-esque debauchery, where it's like, oh yeah, they're having orgies and they're doing all these massive parties. It is evoking and playing in that style of like, wow, this is how the rich people live while the rest of us are very poor. Again, would perhaps have felt silly to me 10 years ago, doesn't feel that silly now. And it's like, yeah, you know, the rich people are doing fucking insane shit all the time. And, I wish they were doing this rather than whatever the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard enough stories of, like, you know, private firefighters protecting Beverly Hills homes while, like, Los Angeles burns, right? Rich people are always up to shit. Yeah, no, I like this party scene, though. And this is where we get to see the new Game Master. It's fucking Philip Seymour Hoffman. I completely forgot he was in these movies.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's in all of them, right? I don't remember when he passed,
all the remaining ones. But, he passed. This, I think, must have been one of the last things he did because he passed in 2014. So while Mockingjay 2 was still like in post production.
Wow. Yeah, like I think he does a great job. I think the character is a bit weird because, like, spoilers, he's a good guy. He's on their side. And knowing that ahead of time does make him seem like an insane person, except for a couple things. I think there's a couple things where it works really well, and there's a couple things that make it seem like he's just fucking with Katniss personally, which is very funny. But, you know, he takes her aside, and he's like, hey, Katniss, I'm going to be the new game maker. And she's like, you know what happened to Seneca Crane, right? And he's like, yeah, he was executed. So, and she's like, so why did you want to come be this very dangerous, you know, job? And he's like, well, maybe you inspired me to come back. And, like, that's a very threatening thing to say. But it's also like, you know, it is hinting at, like, okay, he is, you know, doing something more than just trying to kill children, which is exciting. And at the very end of this, you know, there's a big celebration, there's fireworks, and when the fireworks happens, two important things happen. One, we see that President Snow is, like, bleeding into his, you know, champagne glass through his mouth, which is weird. And secondly, we see that, you know, he like shakes his head when Katniss turns around to look at him. He's like, nah, you done fucked up. You did so bad, baby girl. And at this point, things get worse for everybody in the Capitol. And they start cracking down on the citizens of the Capitol, to be clear, at the advice of Plutarch Heavensby, which I think is really funny when you think about it, how he's like he's on our side, right? He's the good guy, but he's like, you know what, people, what's really gonna get, you know, I know how much you hate Katniss, President Snow. You know what's gonna get people to really hate her is if you send your shock troops in to take away their material goods, like their black market, make sure they don't have any luxuries. People hate that. And then show, like, wedding preparations. So you'd be like, oh yeah, Katniss, she's gonna have, you know, like a super special dress. We'll also have floggings, and then they cut the floggings between, like, the cake tasting for Katniss. And that's gonna show people, you know, oh, Katniss is so rich and cool, and, you know, she's being not made out to be a princess, while the rest of us are getting the shit kicked out of us. And, like, you know, if you've watched Andor, this is just Luthen Rael's strategy of accelerationism. This is just, like, you know, make the Empire crack down harder so people will get more mad. You know, they'll lose the things that they care about protecting, that are stopping them from, you know, causing a violent uprising, which I think is very funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, oof, man, I'm not a believer in the efficacy of accelerationism, so it is kind of hard to watch. But yeah, man, oh god, you watch all the peacekeepers come into, you know, District 12 and whatever, and I just kept watching it. I was like, this feels like what certain people in power think is happening when they deploy troops on the streets of some of our cities. Maybe soon the streets of my city. Oof.
Yeah, again, it's one of those funny things. It's like, yeah, authoritarians love sending troops into places. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, right? Like, it is so, in hindsight, a transparently, like, ineffective strategy, just to be like, yeah, send the troops in to take away the shit that they care about. That'll make all of them really mad at you. Plutarch is laying the groundwork for this, like, popular backlash, which I think is really cool. But at the same time, you know, we also see the material effects of this. Looks like, you know, Gale tackles a peacekeeper, Commander Thread, a hilarious name, firstly. I know this dude's only in this movie for like 2 minutes, but he does a great job of being a huge dickhead cop. He starts flogging Gale, giving him the fucking Jesus of Nazareth treatment, and Katniss comes up to stop him, and he just fucking punches her in the face, which is, like, really good. It's like, yeah, even if she is, like, the most famous girl in the world right now, like, you know, your average cop is just not gonna give a shit. He's like, whatever, punch. But then, like, also Haymitch and Peeta come up and they're like, hey, because the cop draws his gun and he's gonna shoot Katniss, and then Haymitch comes up, he's like, hey man, you're looking at 3 dead victors here. Are you sure President Snow wants this on his hands? And he's like, I guess not. Get the fuck out of here. And then they take Gale back to the house, and we get this scene of Prim actually being like a doctor, like Prim has somehow gained a lot of medical knowledge, which is really interesting. I didn't get to do as much research for behind the scenes stuff. One thing I thought was interesting was that the actress who plays Prim, Willow Shields, because she's a kid, like all the people were talking about how much taller she got in between the two movies. Like all of the actor friends, like, oh my god, you got so much bigger, which is true, right? Katniss is seeing this happen to her sister in real time. Like, oh shit, you're like an adult now. I went away to go do death games for a month, and now you're like a full grown medic, which is really neat. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about that whole District 12 crackdown sequence?
I like I also like the ride. I also like that all the peacekeepers come in white uniform and you could see all the splatter of blood on them. Good. Love. Otherwise, the scene is weird. I was hoping I would see, because at one point, so Gale gets the shit beat out of him, Prim takes care of him, Katniss like sits vigil over him, which again, just a frustrating sequence, because she like kisses him while he's sleeping. And I'm like, I wish a person smarter than me could talk about what kissing is in these movies. Like, is Katniss just confused on how to show affection? Why does she keep kissing these boys? It just feels strange almost every single time that she does it. And it's like, what does it mean to you to kiss them? What are you trying to get them to feel when you kiss them? And so that sucks. And then also at some point, Peeta, again, just a martyr. Peeta comes over at some point and is like, hey, do you want to sleep? I'll watch over him for a little while. I was hoping we would get a conversation between the two of them, because they literally do not interact. And no, they just cut away to go back to a sequence between Prim and Katniss, which I actually did really like.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think this movie would be, dramatically better if we did get a scene of Peeta and Gale having it out. Or not even having it out, just being like, doing the thing where it's like two people talking about a third person who is not in the room and being like, yeah, hey, I know that we're both competing for Katniss's affection. Here's how I feel about her. Here's how I see her. Here's our relationship. We're rivals. Like, that would be interesting, right? I think, one of the things that, Twilight could have benefited from, I think there's occasionally scenes in Twilight that do this, but like, I'm especially thinking of in Eclipse, where Edward and Jacob are sharing the tent because Bella is like freezing. And like they have this like little friendly back and forth. He's like, I'm hotter than you because of his like wolf body temperature or whatever. It's very silly, but it's like a moment where it's like, okay, yeah, they're acknowledging their status, right? They're like, hey, we're romantic rivals for this person. That's interesting to me, to see them like actually have a conversation. If Peeta and Gale never talk, then it's like, oh, well, that's not very interesting,
Yeah, I think the best version of the conversation that they could have had for me would have been one in which they do address how they see Katniss, and you get this moment of Gale talking about her, not just somebody that he wants to protect, but as somebody who's important for some sort. Because he's revealed as being like in on Philip Seymour Hoffman's plan at the end of it, right? Like he goes to District 13 and is not going to be part of this revolution. I would have loved a moment where he like acknowledges that she is a symbol of something greater, and that because they already had when Katniss and Gale in the very beginning were together, she was like, hey, let's just like hoof it, let's run away. And he says no when because the tanks roll in, and he's like, I can't. You can if you want, but I'm staying right here. I have shit to do. And I think in that, it would have been nice to hear what he thinks Katniss's role is in protecting the districts. And then giving Peeta the burden of, okay, well, if I told Katniss that Gale thinks of her this way, it would fundamentally change the way she feels about him in my favor. And then him saying nothing. Yeah,
that would be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
it would be in vain with his self-sacrificing, Again, hey, we're open to script doctoring. You can hire Mortified Enterprises just to doctor your scripts.
Listen, I made this note in your notes, but if Suzanne Collins, if you want some people to write, some short fiction about what it's like to be somebody who works on the Hunger Games and like does procurement and calendar planning for like, okay, we have to get the monkeys in by this time. The zoologist isn't going to be here until Tuesday, so we have to figure out how to feed them and keep them alive until Tuesday with, just a bunch of fucking interns. That would be great. Let us write that.
We are already working on a side project, but I'm just saying we could do a hungry scuffle themed side game after we're done with that one.
Oh, God.
Where it is just like the logistics of doing like horrible, like what is it like to do the battle royale shit, right?
That would be great. Definitely put that in our folder. We want to be careful though, because Sesame Street already did the Hungry Games, so we gotta be really careful that we don't step on their shoes.
The tummy achy silly time.
Mm-hmm. Snow seeing Katniss's like moment of defiance. By the way, they're televising the floggings and then gave Katniss a golden opportunity to be like, stop the floggings, which like, obviously like, buddy, if you don't want somebody to become a figurehead of a revolution, don't put them on fucking television. Just don't televise anything happening in District 12. It's easy as that. Whatever, it's fine.
Do you think the person, because they said that was on a 5-second delay, do you think the person operating that camera also got killed? For not pressing the cut button fast enough?
Maybe not killed, but turned into like an Avox or something. Avoxes haven't come up yet here in this movie. We see one in the background in like one shot, but they don't come up, which is unfortunate because I think they're a more interesting aspect of the society.
That's true.
So anyway, Snow is like, all right, all three victors stood up against my idiot cop man. We have to eliminate their entire species. He uses the word species, deeply fucked up. So they institute a new rule during the Quarter Quell. This is the, every 25 years they do a super fucked up Hunger Games, hysterical thing, but also a very funny thing for Suzanne Collins to be like, I'm gonna do the 74th Hunger Games, and if my agent can pull this off, the 75th one will be super good. I'll have a perfect excuse. Listen, sometimes book publishing is just like, let me just put a little crumb in there and then hope that my agent will do the rest. But like, basically they institute this rule that's like, all of the, we have enough people, from previous, wins, because this has been going on, the pool of, surviving victors is ostensibly, 60, maybe even, 65 years deep at this point. So it's like, okay, we have a decent pool of people who have won the Hunger Games and, from all districts. So we're just going to say the surviving, victors are gonna have to do this again, which is very funny. Firstly, terrible thing to do politically. It's such a stupid thing to do that I can't help but laugh. But it's also like shows how bad Snow wants to kill Katniss. It's like, okay, there's only one female district or tribute from District 12 who's won the Hunger Games in District 12, so Katniss auto gets entered. And, he's like, whatever, but the other two, fuck it, who cares? They can figure it out. But I think it's a funny move. I like it, though. I think it keeps the conceit of the games fresh.
Yeah. I like the reaping scene a lot. It's also one of my favorites in this, because it's like you said, Katniss has to be the girl. She's the only girl. It's very funny. Effie goes to pull her name out of the big fishbowl, and it's only one piece of paper with her name. And then Katniss had gone over to Haymitch and been like, hey, dude, Peeta needs to survive. Like, that's it. I don't care. Let me die. Peeta is too good, needs to live. And Haymitch is like, you're coming here to ask me to die. And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also gonna drink with you.
Yeah, and so they Haymitch does kind of agree, and so the problem is he's like, "Hey, bruh, if I get picked and he volunteers, there's nothing I can do," and it happens so fucking fast. As he goes to that bowl, picks Hamish's name, and before she can say Hamish Abernathy, Peeta's like, I volunteer. And it's so dry. It's not like the first Reaping, where Katniss, you get this big back and forth, you're looking at Prim, you're looking at Katniss. Katniss is like dramatically approaching the podium, screaming she volunteered. Like, it's nothing like that. It is cold. It's calculated. It happens so fucking fast. And then she's ripped away. She doesn't get to say goodbye, put on a train, fucking done. It's like a 2-minute scene. It's so good.
Yeah. I think that, as a contrast to the first Reaping, so much of the pageantry is completely stripped away because like everybody in the district is like, oh, this is like a personal revenge thing, huh? And at the same time, yeah, it is so quick. There is none of the like drama. It's just like, all right, well, here we go. Bye. They don't want her to say goodbye to her family. Even they just go, which is like, it's functionally an execution, which is very good. I like this scene a lot. They go to the Capitol again, and they have all their crew. It's Haymitch, goes with them as their trainer, and Effie is there, just being like, well. Come on, team. She's like trying to pull it together, but she's like starting to see how fucked up this whole thing is, which is very funny. And Haymitch like tells them about the other victors. And he's like, okay, so there's like 4 people you actually have to care about, which are the districts 1 and 2 tributes. They have all weird Roman names, and one of them looks like, a knockoff Vin Diesel. And his name is Brutus, which is also very good. They also talk about Finnick Odair, who is like this horny swimmer guy. He's important. There's BT, who is like a science guy. And the most important thing, the thing that I think is most interesting here, is that all these people know each other. They like have had like been going to these weird Victor parties for years, right? Many of them are friends. So, like, it is a completely different situation. One, Katniss and Peeta are still on the outside, right? They don't have this, like, relationship with the others that they do. So, like, that's, definitely bad. But I think it's also interesting to imagine, like, yeah, these people, they don't want to kill each other. Like, maybe some of the what do you call them? The careers, especially early on, when they're like 18 years old, right? They're psyched to go kill other children. But, like, at this point, you already won the Hunger Games. You probably don't have any desire to go murder people again, and they don't. We see that in the speeches later on, but like all of them are just kind of like, I don't like this, which I think is such a fascinating thing to do. Again, I think it is such a misstep on President Snow's part. Again, that's how stories work, but it is like such a transparently bad move that I can't help but be thrilled that it's in this movie. In this movie.
Yeah, exactly. But there, you get the I was gonna call him Seneca Crane. That's not his name. Who's Stanley Tucci?
Caesar Flickerman.
Caesar. You get the usual Caesar Flickerman talk show, and this is also where we see Joanna, right? And she gets so pissed off that she's there, and she's like, "Actually, fuck all you people, and fuck everyone who had anything to do with me being here." Yeah, I mean, it's good that they're all really, really angry. The thing about when you meet Finnick, too, he is a very horny swimmer. He approaches Katniss while she is petting a horse on a carriage. Mm-hmm. And they do have a really weird conversation about secrets, where basically he's like, I'm so rich, I don't even deal with money anymore. And she's like, yeah, what do you deal? And he's like, secrets, you got any? And she goes, no, I'm pretty sure I'm an open book. He's like, yeah. And he asks her, when exactly did you start being indifferent towards Peeta? Or when did you realize you were completely indifferent towards Peeta? And she insists she's not indifferent. Or no, was that Snow that asked her that?
I don't remember who asks her this. It might be Snow.
No. It was Snow, because what the thing Finnick says is, I'm so sorry, you must be so disappointed about your wedding being canceled. But his thing is that his partner from his district is Mags, mm-hmm. who's like this very sweet old lady. And everyone's like, yeah, Finnick's like one weakness, because he's super cool and super hot and super good at fighting in the water, is Mags. You said this worked for you. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was whatever.
So part of this is me knowing the thing about Finnick, which comes from the books, which is that he is like semi-coerced into doing sex work for the Capitol, Like, this is a thing that happens to the victors, is that they basically become like, they are, encouraged to / forced to do sex work for various rich people in the capital. And that's why he trades in secrets, right? He's like, okay, yeah, I'll sleep with you, but I want to know stuff. That becomes really important. I want to say in Mockingjay, but like, it also makes me think about, especially in contrast or in complementing the scene with Joanna, where Joanna has an intro scene. She gets naked in an elevator after being like, how does it feel that everybody in the Capitol wants to sleep with you? And Katniss is like, I don't think that's true. And then Joanna's like, I'm not talking to you, which is extremely cool of her. She's like, Katniss, I don't give a fuck about you. Your boyfriend, your fiance, however, a little bit hotter. I think this series is doing something interesting with how teens are sexualized, which not a thing that I want to say out loud often, firstly, but because, Finnick talks about, or Finnick has this background of sex work, because Joanna talks about, the sexuality of PETA here and gets naked in the elevator, right? This, obviously we're living in a very puritanical age, right? A big thing in the tabletop scene right now is Itch.io having a lot of, sex positive or containing any sex at all, games being taken down because of payment processors being cowards. So it's very interesting
because a puritanical Christian group based out of Australia or something, complained until the payment processors did that. Let's acknowledge that there's some really dedicated freaks ruining everything for everyone.
Yeah, it's fucking collective shout, eat shit. But like, so firstly, worth noting that there is like this level of, any sexuality in a movie, a blockbuster movie, right? Probably, if not the biggest movie of that year, a top 3. Secondly, like, I think there's something interesting to be like, okay, now that these teens have, become victors, right? They become celebrities too in that way. And that attracts attention and a desire in an interesting way. And like, everybody around them just kind of expects them to deal with it, to maybe not even welcome it, but necessarily, but like expect it to be a part of their life. Like, hey, you are a person who is now you are going to have to deal with sexual advances in a way that maybe you don't want to, and that's just part of your life now. And I think part of that is like, definitely part of being a teenager, right? Is especially as a woman, right? You grow up and all of a sudden people are looking at you different. And like that's definitely a YA thing, for sure. But like they're doing it in a way that I think is really interesting. And again, I talked about the Epstein stuff on our last Hunger Game episodes, right? But like when you think about the way that children and young people especially are commodified in our like attention economy in America, right? Like I think this I won't say it's perfect execution, but is at least attempting something and drawing attention to that weirdness that comes with, you hit a certain age threshold or a certain fame threshold even, and people start to view you as a sex object. This film's trying to do something with that, which is more than I can say for most other YA media that I can think of. I'm sure other YA media does this, so, great assault.
I think you're right. This is very interesting. And like, I think about my experience growing up watching like Britney Spears, right? Because at the top of her game, she was 17 years old, and just like how sexualized she was by the media and how normal we all thought it was. Like, yeah, of course she's famous. And so that means we get to take pictures of her getting out of her car, and God forbid she like flashes her underwear, or, everything that happened to Lindsay Lohan, everything that happened to Amanda Bynes, all these young girls that were thrust into the spotlight, and then just like Miley Cyrus, right, suffered for it. So just trying to do something interesting. Is the execution there? I don't know. It could, again, everything in this movie could have committed 10% harder. But I do agree that it's interesting.
Sometimes it's more interesting to see what a film doesn't do, and then talk about how that could be better. And that's what I like about media criticism, is imagining if a property was better.
Just like jazz. It's about the things you don't see.
That's right. There's the skills demonstration, which is fine. One thing to point out is that there's like an energy field. So like we know that energy fields are going to be weirdly important in this movie. So that Katniss is like, that's probably because I shot an arrow at them last time, which is very funny. But then also when they do their skills demonstration to like get rated on their points, Peeta draws a picture of Rue, which like, for aforementioned reasons, maybe not great. But then Katniss does an insane thing where she makes Seneca Crane in effigy and then hangs him. I don't know what point she is trying to make here besides like, you are all going to die just like Seneca Crane did, or like, you're working for a system that'll ultimately execute you. It's weird. I don't know that it works.
I don't think it works. I think what it's trying to do is remind them that she's the reason Seneca Crane is dead. And just to be like, I'll get your asses too, indirectly and not intentionally, but I'll do it. But again, like it doesn't work because she didn't intentionally kill Seneca Crane.
Right. Yeah.
This was just her acknowledgement of it. Yeah.
You did note in your notes that they get his stupid little beard extremely accurate, and Katniss is finger painting this on the dummy. Katniss must have had like stencils or something to get the finger paints perfectly coiffed.
Perfectly sharp, man. She had to have a paint hand and a clean hand. She had to carve into the shape, It took some artistry. She's learning from Peeta.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that we just like acknowledge that Peeta, by the way, is now a photorealistic painter. He took one special effects makeup class, and now he's just out here doing murals.
It's fine. A lot happened. A lot could happen in a few weeks, as this movie says. So
I guess.
Now we're on to the Caesar Flickerman thing, where we get all of the tributes being like, hey, please stop the games. We don't want to do this. This sucks. Which, one, very cool. I like that. I like that it's just, there's none of the bravado. It's just like, they could stop this if they wanted to. We'd rather not do this. We all won the Hunger Games, but we're not thrilled to be doing it again. Another thing they do is that Katniss is forced to wear a wedding dress by President Snow, which is, again, such a bad move to be like, hey, remember, I am stopping this woman's wedding to kill her specifically. Don't draw attention to that, man. And then Cinna like makes some alterations to it. So when she goes out to talk to Flickerman, she spins around and she turns into a Mockingjay costume, which I think looks bad, but like, you're doing the best you can with what you got.
It's very 2013, and 2013 was not a great time for fashion.
Yeah. This is where Peeta does the smartest thing in the entire series, maybe.
It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for what? Well, if it wasn't for the baby. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
So smart.
Right. It's the only person who's like, yeah, what we could do is make them think about that they're killing an additional person. And I think, again, this taps into like the Americana of it all, right? Just like, oh, we're perfectly happy to kill 24 people, but 24 people and an unborn baby, that's a different thing.
I legitimately do not think that this movie was trying to make that critique.
I don't think so either.
I wish it was.
Right, exactly.
I wish it was. Oh my god, what a beautiful roast of the whole, project of like, we care so much about unborn babies, and then as soon as that thing is out in the world, it's over. There's no benefits, no help for the parents, no nothing. Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Right.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, baby.
Mm-hmm. Also, rip to Lou Dobson. Rest in piss.
Yeah, rest in piss. The dehydrated kind.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a podcast where we talk about how shitty you were anymore, but you sucked ass. Bye.
Yeah, fuck that guy. May his grave be a toilet. Whatchamacallit? I really love this little Seneca Crane bit. First of all, Stanley Tucci's serving. Again, they tanned him to hell. Everyone in this movie's got self-tanner on. I don't know why. 2013, sure. But Katniss does her little spin around. Peeta's like, oh, if it wasn't for the baby. And then all the tributes are just up on the risers at the end. They all hold hands and lift their fucking arms up together. And then the lights go out. Yum, 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 yum. You know, you got Joanna popping off. Like, it's just a good little sequence. It's very YA, very melodramatic, but it's really good.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how this would play out in real life, right? Like, what if anybody who, was on, who won American Idol for the past 20 seasons, was forced, into some sort of death game by Donald Trump, right? Like, it is such a weird thing to position celebrities as the vanguard of the revolution in this way. But, like, I think it would be interesting, and I think more people would care about the atrocities that our government commits if it were celebrities that were being, taking the brunt of them. Right? Like,
the way I would sponsor Kelly Clarkson, nothing would happen to Kelly Clarkson. I would bankrupt myself to keep that woman alive.
Yeah, I don't think Kelly Clarkson it would be possible for her to lose, because as soon as she gets in the arena, she's, armor-proof or bulletproof vest, machine gun, a flaming pony. Like, she's gonna be good. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
She's a national treasure. I'm not letting that woman die.
Right. I'm just saying that if we needed some sort of revolutionary leader, it would be Kelly Clarkson in our hour of need.
Absolutely. You heard the pipes on that woman? Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
She's just very charming.
Mm-hmm.
I like her bangs. Yeah, I also don't know about, well, I mean, I guess the thing is that none of these people were celebrities until they won the games, right? And now they are celebrities because they won the games, but they're celebrities to the districts. They are commodities to the capital.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, there is an interesting and unexplored angle that we keep dancing around of, like, what happens when your commodities start to rebel.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when your toys gain sentience and start stabbing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Underexplored little. That's the problem with the Hunger Games, is there's a lot of interesting concepts, but they follow the most uninteresting threads of those concepts.
I mean, I think that is a large way why children's, and YA and even pop culture media generally works, is because they hit things with such a broad brush. Like, I've talked before about how I think the actual, like, lore of James Cameron's Avatar is fascinating. And everything about those movies drives me up a fucking wall because they don't care about any of the interesting shit. They're just like, what if my biracial boy was really sad? It's like, okay.
I wish I could make that the title of this episode.
You can. You can make that the title of every episode when I'm on it.
That's well, yeah, that could be about either of us, really. Mm-hmm. I refer to myself, despite not being a man, I refer to myself as one constantly.
You're one of the guys.
Just to keep the cishets on their fucking toes.
That's right. This baby bomb doesn't work. They are all sent to the arena.
I mean, it works for me.
I mean, listen, it works, but it doesn't work, in the world of the games. They're all sent into the arena. Before Katniss is sent up, she's, like, trapped in her little tube. Cinna goes to see her off, and then the peacekeepers come and just beat the living shit out of him. Rip to a king. What are you gonna do? Then she gets sent to this arena. The arena is like a big island. No, it's not an island. It's there's like a lake.
There's an island in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
The cornucopia is on an island, but it's a lake that's divided into 12 parts. And then there's a jungle around it. And the whole island is encased in a force field, like a dome. Katniss, once the klaxon goes off, Katniss immediately gets a bow, which I think is a really smart choice. Just to be like, we're not going to fuck around. Give her the fucking bow. And she starts dropping dudes immediately, which is very cool. And then she nearly shoots Finnick. But Finnick holds up, like, a wristband that he has, which is the same one that matches the one that Effie gave to Haymitch. He's like, hey, remember who the real enemy is? And she's like, wait, that's weird. I guess I won't shoot you right now. They go and rescue Peeta, who is being drowned. But then, like, after this initial fight, things really cool off, and then we just get into obstacle course territory for, like, nearly the rest of the movie. Anything to say about this instance?
Well, we skipped over the because in the first movie there's that thing where they all do training for a while. We skipped over the bit where the training in this movie is very sad because again, these people already won their fucking games. Mm-hmm. So you walk into the training room and people are like throwing up because they've been self-medicating for years and they don't want to be here. And in this game, because like you said, everybody's friends, the game is to pick allies, and so Katniss picks Nuts and Bolts, right? The two nerdy scientists, and she wants Mags, who is like Finnick's pair. And I thought this was the dumbest shit. They did Peeta dirty in this sequence because she was like, I want Mags. And Peeta was like, what? That's so stupid. Peeta, rub your two brain cells together. If you get Mags, you get Finnick. Finnick's being an asshole, so the way you get Finnick is by getting Mags. That's it. Easy peasy logic. And so, it was nice to see that pay off in this sequence where like Mags very clearly was like, she's an older lady and she's kind of nonverbal. So you could see her like pointing at Peeta where he was drowning. So I like that, right? I like her participating in that way. Yeah. And then, having these goons run into the jungle. So ever since I lost my job, I have not had very much of an appetite. I'm turning into my grandmother in my old age where I also can't eat when I'm stressed. I already mentioned Peeta chomping on that bread made me want bread. When there's a part in here where a wave hits the cornucopia and you can see the like kind of semi-force field and it looks like a wedge. The way I want pie now.
Oh, that's a very funny thing to see a death match and the arena is shaped like a pie and be like, I'm a little hungry.
It really is the Hunger Games for me.
And you know what? Why shouldn't it be? They get a little spigot that looks like that lets them get water out of the trees. And I was like, man, that looks like some good water. They're very sweaty and I like that. I like that they're like, we have to deal with dehydration immediately. I think that like
they heard our critique from last movie.
Well, here's the thing. If I remember correctly from the Songbirds and Snakes book, which I read last year, like the first 10 Hunger Games were super fucking boring because they didn't like they just like gave a bunch of people like clubs and told them to go to town. But like, they didn't, I like the idea of like the first, 20 Hunger Games. Well, everybody's died of dehydration again. So better luck next year.
How do you train for those games by just like being chronically dehydrated and seeing how long you can last?
Yeah.
Some Bear Grylls shit, just like drinking your own piss.
That might have been how Haymitch won, I believe. It's just by like,
I'm sure the alcohol he drinks tastes worse than his own piss would. So.
That's true. I mean, the arena obstacles are like truly the least interesting part of this movie for me, besides the love triangle. But like, there's some poison gas, which is very fun and silly. There are the Jabberjays, which are like the voices of your loved ones that, yelling, calling out for your name. Those are kind of fucked up. And then there's the monkeys. We talked about the mandrills, hysterical thing to just be like, and then like a horde of monkeys tries to kick your ass. Very good. Yeah, I mean, anything. I mean, the only thing that we notice is like, character wise, is that like, Johanna like goes and rescues Beatty and Wyrus, who are the district, I want to say 5 people, and they're pretty cool.
Mags kills herself.
Yeah, Mags sacrifices herself when they're escaping the poison gas. Because Peeta gets fucked up and she's like, I'm too heavy for Finnick to carry, so I'm just gonna go into the mist. Several instances of like the older generation sacrificing themselves for the younger generation, which I think is, thematically pretty solid. And then eventually, Wyrus figures out that like the arena is a clock. They're like, hey, there's a different obstacle that happens every hour. They figure it out pretty quickly, and then they immediately spin the arena around, so you have to like, you forget, I guess, unless you know how, anything about navigation works, because that tree is in the same spot. So like, I don't think that was very effective, but it's fucking whatever. It's fine. This all culminates in Beatty being like, hey, what if I hook up this conveniently placed copper wire to the lightning tree, and then I just put a wire in the beach, and then the other guys might show up there, and then they'll all get electrocuted? And everybody is like, sure, fucking whatever, I guess. And
it's a really contrived way to get to the ending that they're trying to get to.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Maybe it works better in the book, but like, you know, Katniss starts getting suspicious because they split Peeta and her up, and then, you know, they get ambushed by some of the two remaining victors, and Johanna.
Well, before we get too far into this,
okay,
I do have two thoughts on the clock shit. One, I had a moment when Mag sacrificed herself into the poison fog that really felt like the Titanic door moment, where, you know, everyone's always like, Rose could have just scoot over. My equivalent of that for the Mag's moment of Katniss's whole thing is like, hey, I can't carry Peeta. That might be fair. Peeta's supposed to be jacked, right? Muscle weighs a lot. Maybe she can't carry this like jacked young man. She probably could carry Mags though.
I mean, yeah, she's probably, you know, around 100 pounds.
Yeah, skinny old woman. And she didn't have that far to go. So I was like, I don't know. This beat didn't necessarily work for me.
It's fine.
It's not a big deal, but yeah. It was just, I looked at Katniss and went, you could carry Mags though. Then, so we were talking earlier about how, like, Katniss is a weird character because you're missing all of her interiority. So the fact that she's kind of sassy this time around, one of my favorite Katniss beats is, you know, they have the island spin around and Katniss gets flung off the island. She almost drowns and then she pulls herself back out and Joanna kind of helps her. And Joanna's like, are you okay? And she's like literally hacking up water and just like plastered. And she just raises a thumb up. I was like, that's really funny. That's really good. I like that little beat for her. And same with, she said, her and Peeta were like having a moment because Peeta was like, hey dude, can we be friends at least?
Right.
You know, he asked her his, like, what's your favorite color? And she's like, oh, now you've crossed the line.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, okay. I like it. I wish there was cause for it, but I like it. The thing is, I wish, this is my teeny tiny script doctor for the whole figuring out the clock thing. No offense. Is Beatty the lady?
No, he's the dude. Wirus is the dude. Wirus.
No offense to Wirus. I wish she was already dead by the time they got to the beach. Or, at least, got killed as soon as they got to the beach. And then you could have the confrontation with the Kurz a little bit earlier. And I wish Katniss figured out the fucking clock thing on her own. Because she's not goddamn dumb. They've observed the wall and the wedge a couple of times now. She's the one that saw the tree. And like, yeah, maybe in the books, Wirus is the one that does the thing because she's like a little bit loopy. She just keeps saying TikTok. In the movie, it just like takes agency away from Katniss, and it feels like if Wirus wasn't there to do the TikTok, they wouldn't have ever figured it out. And I'm like, I need Katniss to have some sort of agency. I need her to feel like the hero. I need her to put something together herself. And having to do that, Wirus only being there to be like TikTok so like Katniss could figure out the clock thing and then immediately die. I'm like, what was the point?
Yeah. It is a bit strange. Yeah, I mean, again, we're getting a lot of like deaths to help advance the plot, which is fine, but also it would have been nice if Katniss had any more, you know, insight than just being like, oh, somebody gave me a hint. I got it now.
Well, even in the in the first game, like the reason she knew about the Hornets was Prue.
Right.
Rue. I combined Prim and Rue together, which
well,
I think is
that's intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. Rue. So anyway, so they go to the fuck ass tree with the fuck ass wire.
Yeah. Basically what happens here, Joanna and Katniss go to like bring the wire down to the beach. They get ambushed. Joanna seemingly betrays Katniss, but then she cuts Katniss's little like GPS track her out of her arm, and then also like spills Katniss's blood on her throat to make it seem like she killed Katniss, which is very funny. And then Joanna goes off to like distract the couriers. Katniss runs back. She thinks that Finnick has murdered Peeta because he's calling for her. She's about to shoot him in the face, and he's like, remember who the real enemy is. She also figures out that like they're doing something with the force field because Beatty has knocked himself unconscious with his electric spear thing, which like doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that man would have not figured out how to do this, because he's like a genius who understands everything about why. It's fine. It's a small nit.
Because Katniss needs to have her Ben Franklin moment.
And she does. She does have
and
this
she
moment.
does.
Yeah. She figures out what he was trying to do. She ties an incredibly quick knot onto her arrow with the copper wire. She shoots it up into the sky just as a lightning bolt hits the tree, killing her instantly, but not actually killing her instantly. She just gets blasted away, and she's very frazzled. But it shoots the copper wire up into the sky. The lightning hits this electric energy field and blows the like roof off of it. A moment I thought was really cool, actually, because like they've been living in this simulated atmosphere for the whole time. So like when the force field comes down, it's actually day piercing through like simulated night, which I think is a really cool beat. I just like really liked that moment as a part of like a little storytelling moment, imagery wise. But yeah, anyway, Katniss. Oh, go ahead.
When did they build this? I just can't stop thinking about it now. When did they have time to build this? Were they just prepping this for the 75th anyway? Was this always the plan? I thought Philip Seymour Hoffman. How far ahead was Philip Seymour Hoffman planning?
See, this is why they need us to do some writing on this, because like, yeah, if you're rotating game makers every year, they have to like get onboarded incredibly quickly, like immediately after the old games are over, because they only have 12 months to get this ready. Like, what decisions are they making? Are they just a game designer? Like, are they just like making the rough outline, kind of like how George R.R. Martin made the rough outline of Elden Ring, and then people had to like work to make the rest of the game? Like, the logistics of the Hunger Games are so wild, because like, how long does it take anybody to raise an Olympic stadium? Because it seems like it takes a long time, and those are also way smaller.
They're working on the LA one right now, right? For the 2028 games?
Yeah, that's in 3 years. I mean, I guess they have like sci-fi technology, but still.
Did Plutarch come in and somebody else Seneca Crane already did this like fucked up? Does he have just like several in progress arenas to pick from?
There must be.
Join us next time for our logistics fucking Evil City builder.
If I remember correctly, Mockingjay are my least two. Both of those are my least two favorite of this franchise. I guess we'll see. There's a new movie out. Maybe we'll hate that more. But like, it might just develop into us talking about the timelines that it takes to build these arenas. So we'll see.
I'm like we'll see. I'm going to look up the summary a little bit, maybe for the movies. I'm very tempted to just say, hey, let's watch both of them.
We probably should. You're probably right.
I don't know if I want to drag out Leyla and Aaron's Evil City building corner for 2 episodes.
We could make an entirely new podcast on our Evil City building corner, but that's a completely different conversation.
That's true.
But
that's for if we get enough listeners to pay us money, which will never happen.
That's okay.
And it's fine with me.
Yeah. Anyway, Katniss gets airlifted out. She like
love the shot.
Her arms are like hanging back. She looks terrible as the little like spacecraft lifts her off, and she's like, "Huh, I guess I'm dead now." But then she wakes up in the aircraft, or it's not even an aircraft, right? It's a base. But she wakes up and she's like getting medical attention, and her first instinct is to like grab a syringe and do some fucking Splinter Cell shit. And she like comes up to like ambush, whoever's driving the aircraft, and she sees Haymitch. She sees who is the third? It's Finnick, and yes. Plutarch is the third person. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And then she immediately assumes Haymitch has betrayed her, it seems very stupid, right? Her first instinct is to try to murder Haymitch, and Haymitch immediately just kind of like slams her against the wall, and he's like, this is why we don't tell you the plans, because you're fucking crazy. Which, like, I guess feels right in a movie where she's been kind of dumb the entire film. But yeah, you know, poor Katniss does kind of seem very stupid this entire movie, which is not great.
Yeah, there's a version of this movie where she does get told, and she negotiates with, you know, Haymitch and his, you know, probably what would be like a mysterious benefactor for the safety of her family, right? Because Prim is the one that tells her, hey, don't worry about protecting me and Mom. We are with you. Go do the revolution. We want you to do the revolution. In a very cool scene where I think I made the note, you know, Katniss's side braid becomes this like revolutionary symbol, right? In the Capitol, people wear it as a fashion, which again is another cool critique of revolutionary culture where like girls in the Capitol are now all wearing this side braid because they think it's cool, right? They're commodifying the aesthetics of a revolution. Meanwhile, in the district, it is, you know, not explicitly in the narrative, but visually as a film language is seen as a symbol of people who agree with Katniss or who are symbols of the rebellion, because in that scene, Katniss's hair is down. She's very vulnerable. Meanwhile, Prim has a side braid braided into her hair in a way that's like not exactly copying Katniss, but it's the style while kind of like making it her own. And in that scene is when she's like, do the revolution, right? So there is a version of this movie where Katniss gets pulled aside by Haymitch, gets told the plan, you know, and is like more secure in operating the way she's operating in disappointing Snow, so long as her, you know, family's safety is guaranteed and is given a little bit more intention. Is that movie more interesting? I don't know, because I like watching Katniss be bad at television. But then again, she's also not consistently bad at television in this movie. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, this movie ends with Gale showing up and being like, hey,
sure.
So I mean, this is also how the book ended, so it's true to the book, but like, it is weird to be like, hey, this guy that we don't really know that much about is like, hey, your mom and your sister are safe. They did firebomb our home to the ground. Anyway, and then Katniss kind of like looks into the camera very dramatically. It's a weird end. It's a weird ending.
Weird end. Whatever.
On the whole, though, pretty good movie. I mean, we've talked about it for an hour and a half, which is not normally what we do with things we don't like. I mean, I think it is a testament to us as critics that like we are taking stuff. This is, you know, a thing that we generally did like, and we're also able to be like, hey, here's all the stuff that's wrong with it. You know, I think that shows that we're doing something right, and that we're able to have interesting conversations, even if we, you know, largely like the movie.
We'll see. We're exhausted. We'll see if this is interesting in the edit.
True. Yeah. Well, we'll see. That's enough. Do you have any closing thoughts on Hunger Games: Catching Fire?
Oh, I'm so not looking forward to the whole PETA is evil shit.
Yeah, that part's
in the next movie.
That part's dumb. Well,
so stupid.
Yeah, that's like, that comes at the end of the first half of it, which is also really stupid. Which is why I think it's a good call to combine them. But yeah, on the whole,
yeah,
I liked it. I liked a lot of the world building stuff. And yeah,
I liked it better than the first one. The action cinematography was more coherent, which I liked.
Fair enough. Leyla, when we are not
big yawn,
when we are not trying to make content on the dregs of our energy, where can we be found on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Tumblr and Tumblr and Blue Sky. I had it. I panicked, but I had it. Right now I am working on going through my backlog of game demos that I keep downloading and not playing, and I'm going to publish a little write-up of what I liked about all of those games. So if you are interested in that, I am playing the demos for Cairn, Death Howl, Dispatch, Kill the Music, Pantarai, and Spell Hack. And Aaron, I think you in particular would like Death Howl. I'll tell you why off air. It's a game for chess perverts, but yeah. So I'm up to that right now, and then otherwise just trying to catch my breath. What about you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at AA Voigt, Tumblr at Monster Factory Fanfic, and YouTube at AA Voigt, where I make tabletop video essays. It seems increasingly less likely the more this week goes on, but it's possible that before this episode comes up, I will have a video essay out on the Wild Sea. And it's not even really an essay, it's a setting analysis where I just talk about, I do what we do here, which is to extrapolate details from the setting and try to, have an interesting imaginary of what that game, what society and culture is like in that game. So that sounds interesting to you. Maybe check it out. Hopefully. I'm so goddamn tired. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshco from the album Filmmaker's Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshco.bandcamp.com. Leyla, how shall we say goodbye to the Hunger Games Catching Fire?
Aaron, how are we going to kill these people?
We'll see you all next time.